Now that's box talk.
Alright, dude. It's me, Z, and today we have a very special guest here on the second episode of Boxcast. We have here B. B, say hi.
Hi, everybody. Z, thank you for having me on the show.
No problem. So, the reason that we have B on the show today is, in the wake of Next Gen, B is a resident, rabid, might I add, PlayStation fanboy. So, can we confirm, B, that you are a rabid PlayStation fanboy?
Oh, hell yes.
Okay, good. So, we're going to have some very juicy details and juicy topics coming up. You want to hear my first impressions of Next Gen in Boxcast number 1, check the link at the very top of the video, and also check the link in the description. So first, what we're going to do is talk about B's and mine history with PlayStation. So B, go ahead and just tell us, what is your history with PlayStation as a whole? The consoles, the company as a whole, things like that.
All right, so my history with PlayStation starts actually when I was actually really young, and I didn't own the first PlayStation.
Oh, you didn't own a PS1?
Not when it first came out.
Okay.
I got one later on.
What was your first console then?
My first console was actually a Nintendo 64, which
okay.
I will say I really love that console.
Okay.
You know,
Okay.
If kind of skipping ahead here, if we are going to really say what order it does go, PlayStation, Nintendo, and then Xbox is last because it just has to be.
Okay. Well, we'll get into that.
Third place is just last loser all the time.
That's true.
Anyway.
Yes, agreed. So, history with PlayStation, you didn't have a PS1, PS2.
I had a Nintendo 64, and I loved that console. My best friend at the time, he owned a PlayStation.
Okay.
And I was always just like, man, that's the console I wanted.
Right.
Not my Nintendo 64, even though there was nothing wrong with it. I absolutely loved the thing. There was just something about how the controller felt, just how it probably didn't run this way, but it felt smoother. Everything looked nicer, cleaner, and I also just liked the logo. I liked saying the name PlayStation.
Right.
It sounded like something that I wanted to be connected to.
Versus a Nintendo 64 with kind of the crazy Joy-Cons, the crazy joystick, the off-kilter controller, you know what I mean?
And I would probably say my biggest disconnect from Nintendo was the fact that Nintendo had existed so much further back than that. And I didn't have an original NES or Super NES and all that kind of stuff. And it was like, yeah, the Nintendo 64 being a great console, but I didn't have those years of connection with it.
Right.
It's kind of like if you were to just pick up a PS5 as your first PlayStation console and not have any of the nostalgia feeling of previous PlayStation consoles and just be like, but I miss I miss the other console.
I see.
You know what I mean?
So you wanted kind of the history. You wanted to be in deep with the history of the company before you delve deep into a system.
Yeah, and even though I didn't own the PlayStation 1 when it first launched, I was there when it launched. I was like around that kind of encompassing environment. It was the biggest talk, like one of the coolest systems you could possibly have, and I had friends that personally had it.
So then skip ahead. I know that you had a PS2. I'm going to spoil that. When did you get a PlayStation 2?
I got a PlayStation 2 much later on in years.
Okay.
Again, my console after the Nintendo 64 was another Nintendo console.
Oh,
which
was it?
Yeah, the Game Boy SP.
Oh, right. Okay,
I got the Game Boy SP, and I loved that thing to death.
Okay.
And so for a long time, I was really just on board with Nintendo, and PlayStation was kind of something that I didn't know when or if I would get.
So like something in the distance that you're like, dang, I kind of wish I had that.
And my family, they all kind of knew that. They all understood and that I had expressed enough that I wanted a PlayStation 2.
Right.
And my cousin at the time, he just sold me a big old fat original PlayStation 2. It had a coin in there.
Did it really?
Somehow they dropped a coin in there, so if I picked it up and rattled it, you would hear it knocking around.
I actually didn't know that. That's interesting.
I actually still have that console hooked up to my TV right now.
Really? You have it hooked up to your TV today?
Yeah, I never really have to play it, but I like looking at it. The big fat boy is still sitting there.
So when you got your PS2, how did it feel going from SP and N64? Like just getting a PS2?
Well, the PS2 being one of the greatest consoles, if not the greatest console of all time.
Agreed.
It was awesome.
Okay.
You know, the controller was better than the Nintendo 64's. Now, with that being said, though, now we're comparing a PlayStation 2 to a Nintendo 64.
Right, of course. You'd have to compare GameCube to PS2.
That
to
would be
equal,
that would be more accurate. So
Sure.
I'm not gonna diss the Nintendo 64.
But what we can say is that going from N64 to PlayStation 2, the controller is much more modern feeling, right? If you go back to a PS2, it still feels kind of like a DualShock in a sense, right?
Absolutely.
And so that makes sense. So then after PS2, you had your PS2 Fat. Did you ever get a Slim?
I did get a Slim.
Okay.
I did get a Slim off of one of my friends.
Okay.
Because I was having problems with my Fat Boy. I was able to fix those problems. That's why I still use it.
Okay.
I still have it today.
And so with PS2, let's just say rattle them off the top of your head, top 3 games that you were playing at the time.
We've got God of War.
Okay.
We
Specifically 1 or 2?
God of War 1 and 2.
1 and 2, okay.
We have Grand Theft Auto San Andreas.
Yes,
still,
absolutely.
Still my
yes.
Still my most favorite Grand Theft Auto game
Right.
of all
right.
time.
That's the correct answer.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then we
Twisted
were
Metal?
playing. I was not playing Twisted Metal. I played it, but I did not
okay.
personally own it.
Gotcha.
Another big one that I really I played a lot was Predator Concrete Jungle.
Oh, yes. Okay,
Because,
Predator Concrete Jungle.
You
Yes,
know, that
yes,
was
yes.
also
I'm going to try to get some footage up on the screen for you guys so you can see Predator Concrete Jungle. Just describe Predator Concrete Jungle for a
Predator
second.
Concrete Jungle. Replaying it, it's a very flawed game.
Very dated.
Very dated, but it was also one of the very few Predator games where I felt like they got the feeling of a Predator correctly.
I agree.
So and this was also one of the very few Predator games. I'm not aware of too many others where you can play as the Predator in third person. Most of them they have you in first person, and
Yes.
that's not necessarily a bad thing. But I did enjoy being able to see the entire Predator, all of its details,
Right.
being able to
And
shift the
yes,
camera.
That game was. Oh, okay. Anyway, not make this a Predator Concrete Jungle podcast, which we
Yeah.
will do if you guys want. Leave a comment below if you want to hear more about Predator Concrete Jungle. Next up, we will be talking about PS3. So I know I'm kind of spoiling ahead, but I know you went from PS2 to PS3, and you had recently told me off air that this is the console that not changed everything for you, but go ahead. I'll let you take it away with the PS3. What's your history with it?
So kind of more properly transition from
Okay.
the previous question. God of War being my favorite video game franchise of all time.
Okay, good to know. Good to know.
God of War 3 coming out on the PS3
Mm-hmm.
was probably the biggest influencer for me choosing the PlayStation 3 over the 360.
Really?
And
So at the time, did you care at all about, what did you think about the original Xbox? I'm kind of jumping around. I was originally going to do PlayStation, Nintendo, Xbox, but I feel like maybe your histories are all kind of intertwined. So what was your opinion of the original fat Xbox?
Oh, they're absolutely deeply intertwined. So
Right.
we've kind of already gone over my Nintendo history.
Right.
And we've gone.
And did it kind of stop there? Did you have GameCube?
I did not get a GameCube.
Okay.
If we want to get into GameCube, I'll make that part short. Basically, I never saw the appeal of a GameCube until I went to one of my friend's houses. He had a GameCube, and I always thought of the GameCube as a far inferior console to the PlayStation
Which is
2
incorrect.
and Xbox 360 or Xbox original at the time.
Right.
But as soon as I played his GameCube, I was like, oh my god, this thing competes. This thing competes and might even be better than most things that the Xbox and the PlayStation can do.
Wow.
So, you know, my
So you had respect for it even though you didn't have one?
yeah, my
Okay.
ignorance to how great it actually was killed in that moment.
Right, okay. So now original Xbox.
But when we look back at the PS2, here comes the fanboy now,
Yes, absolutely,
right? Because
absolutely.
I feel like I'm really just propping up Nintendo. Nintendo is a great company that deserves props where it gets it. But the PlayStation was killing it, man.
It
The
absolutely
PlayStation was able to play DVDs and CDs. The PlayStation had so
Yes.
many new exclusives coming out. Had all of my favorite games on it.
Right.
From God of War, you know, Grand Theft Auto, which I know later down the line actually got put on the Xbox.
Right.
But
so-
originally it was only for the PS2, if I remember correctly.
No, yeah, it was exclusive for a while. And so then when you're looking at GameCube, okay, you have respect for the company. It's just not what you have at the time.
Yeah.
You have a PS2, big fat boy Xbox.
And now my friend, this was the same friend that owned the PlayStation 1. And I was like jealous of his.
Right.
He got an Xbox. Big old fat controller, the
Yep,
big,
yep.
huge, ginormous box. He had an original Xbox. And for a split second, I was almost like, wow, I might want an Xbox over my PlayStation. You know,
Really? Okay.
The Xbox original was a serious console.
It was.
Like,
it was.
I'm gonna give as much props to Xbox because there's not gonna be many props to Xbox.
Yeah, this
Like basically
this is about all we're gonna
my
get.
love for Xbox started and stopped at the original.
Okay.
He had some awesome games and
Halo.
Halo, and he had another game. It was kind of a knockoff of Grand Theft Auto Driver. Driver 3.
Oh, okay,
was
yeah,
the
yeah,
name of it.
exactly.
And that was a fun game.
Yes.
I will not deny that I had fun playing that game.
Mhm.
But then, Grand Theft Auto came out on that one. I was
Right.
like, wow, Xbox is kind of killing it,
Okay.
right? But like going back to all my favorite games
Mhm.
on the PlayStation 2, I wouldn't have traded my PlayStation 2 for an Xbox. If I
Okay.
could have gotten both,
Mhm.
yes. I remember actually, my dad at the time asked me would I want an Xbox or a PlayStation 2,
Mhm.
and I was like, ooh, which one should I choose? And ultimately, I did come to the decision. I asked him for a PlayStation 2. I never got it from him, but I like there was a moment where I did have to soul search, like, do I want this Xbox original, or would I choose to get a new PS2?
And what was the deciding factor? Was it just God of War, the exclusives on it?
I feel like this is where I kind of like established a little bit of a fanboyism because
Okay.
I don't really even recall why I chose the PS2.
Okay.
You know,
okay.
I can't really recall why Xbox
maybe
lost
more
out to it.
Maybe more friends had it, and you were just
Maybe
like, oh,
more
yeah.
friends had it, or maybe I was just like, you know what, I've always kind of just had a PlayStation, or I've always dreamt of having a PlayStation. I want to just get another PlayStation.
Right. Right.
But that was kind of like my first time being tempted with the options,
Right. Okay.
and me choosing PlayStation over it.
Okay. So now you picked PS2. You get a PS3 because of God of War 3. You said primarily. Now, of course, this is where the fanboyism comes in. This is where the OG console war in
This is
our
the
generation kind of
This
came
is
in.
the OG console war here.
Of our generation. So
Before the-
360.
Before then, like consoles were just kind of like you just got whatever you got.
Right.
But now it's like those kids that were growing up kind of getting whatever their parents got them.
Right.
We were making more decisions now.
Right.
We were a little bit more conscious of what we wanted. Some of us were even old enough to get like jobs and
Right.
like
right.
buy what we wanted. So
Mhm.
we had to like really focus
Right.
on what we wanted
And
to
so
get.
just a little backstory on for me, my first console that I actually paid for with my own money, and the console that made me get a job was the Star Wars Special Edition Xbox 360. So when I saw that come out, just everybody knows I'm a huge Star Wars fan. When that came out, I was like, you know what? It's time for me to get a job, and I'm going to buy this console. So obviously Z and B went very different directions in terms of PlayStation versus Xbox 360. So you got God of War PS3. What is it about the 360 that you absolutely hated? Because you did hate the 360,
Okay, so
and you still do hate the 360.
I still hate the 360. Like honestly, the 360 to me was the most overrated console I've
Wow.
ever seen in my life.
Why is
Like
that?
I would probably like
Why is so
let's
Go ahead.
dive into this.
Okay.
Now we get into Rabid.
Yes,
Fanboy.
Rabid. You've already seen the title, Rabid PS Fanboy. I'll put a timestamp in the description. Go ahead. Why is it that the Xbox 360, and this is a very bold claim, that it is the most overrated console of all time?
Okay, so let's go ahead and go through my journey into choosing the PS3. For all of you out there, most of you either had an Xbox 360
Mhm.
or the majority of your friends and family had Xbox 360s, and
Correct.
I was no exception. Almost all of my friends had a 360.
Mhm.
Almost all of my family had a 360, and
I actually want to say you were the only person I knew that had a PS3 for a very long time.
because the Xbox 360 had the jump. They had come out a year early, and everybody was just like, it was for that year the biggest, greatest, best thing.
Right.
Like hands down, obviously it was better than a PS2, it was better than an Xbox original.
Right.
And I was kind of like reluctant. One, I was still too young to buy a console when the first consoles came out.
Right.
I don't even remember how old I actually was.
Right.
But that's irrelevant. I was not able to buy one. I would be reliant on someone gifting it to me, my mother buying it for my Christmas gift, or
Mhm.
family members pitching in to give it to me as a birthday present or something like that.
Right.
And I was kind of reluctant to like portray that I wanted that console
Mhm.
because I knew, even though it wasn't out yet, the PlayStation 3 had been announced.
Right. And you knew God of War was going to be an exclusive.
I knew it was going to be an exclusive, but I wasn't even thinking that way as of yet.
So what was your thought then? Why were you holding out for a PS3 over a 360 when you could get on the hype?
I had one of my uncles, he had shown me some of the footage for the PS3,
Right.
and it impressed me. Like the
Do you
console.
remember what the footage was?
It was for Metal Gear Solid 4.
Oh, okay, okay.
And you know, you could replay that game and you could say what you want about it, but
Mm.
when I saw it for the first time, it actually really, really impressed me, and that was a PlayStation 3 exclusive.
Gotcha. Okay, okay.
And
So just to pause, it seems like one of the things that you keep coming back to is the exclusive games on PlayStation.
absolutely,
And we're going to talk in depth more about this, but I think that that's kind of the difference between Nintendo, or not, excuse me, not Nintendo, because I'm always Nintendo on the brain, but PlayStation fans and Xbox fans, where you keep coming back to, oh, they had this footage from this exclusive game, or they had God of War Promise, or they had Twisted Metal, they have San Andreas was exclusive. So would you say that exclusive games are the most important thing for you when looking at a console, or would you say it's graphics? Would you say it's controller? Like, what kind of rank that for us?
well, when it came to PS3, I dove very, very deep into what was happening.
Right.
So you got to understand though, I am going to be comparing the original fat PlayStation 3 versus I'd probably say the first and second generation of the Xbox 360. No, we're not
Right.
going to go into slims. I never owned a slim of either console.
Mhm.
And I'm just going to compare the ones that the PlayStation 3 that I had versus the Xboxes that my family had.
And so this was kind of like, just to understand the time period, if you weren't there, once the systems got slimmer and they kind of got more refined, the experience became very similar, and that's even reflected in the sales of the 360 versus the PS3, because originally, we all know, PS3 was flopping hard, it was too
Very.
expensive, it was too fat, people didn't like it, and the 360, while it had the red ring of death, it was a much more quote-unquote refined experience online. And see, I'm trying to convince him to like the 360 here. This is why I chose it, but go ahead. Random got the 360. Tell me why you hated it.
Okay.
Because we keep getting off that topic.
So, the first thing that made me hate it was actually just the peer pressure to get it.
Okay.
I was very annoyed with all of my friends, all of my family being like, "You gotta get the 360. We're all on the 360. You'll be the only one without a 360. Get a 360, 360, 360, 360." I'm just like, everyone shut up.
Right.
Like, I wanted to think. I wanted to choose it for myself, or I wanted to go with PlayStation myself.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And when it came to like choosing a console just for exclusives, eventually you could just get both. God of War 3 did not come out with the launch of the PlayStation 3.
Right.
So it's like I could have even had enough time to get a PlayStation 3 just for God of War or just for the exclusive later on.
Right. Right.
So that wasn't even like the major factor for me.
Okay.
It did help.
But it definitely
But-
soured your opinion and view on it. That
Exactly.
everybody's pushing you. To
My
get a
but my
360.
hatred for the 360 was the pure pressure first.
Okay. Second.
The second one was I actually dove in deep. I looked at stats. I looked at CPUs,
The specs,
GPUs.
yeah.
I looked at how much RAM. I looked
Hard
at
drive size,
hard
and-
drives. I looked at the HD versus the Blu-ray players that were in,
Right.
that were in the conflicting consoles.
Right.
And basically, it turned out that the PlayStation, as expensive as it was actually worth a lot more money than it was even being sold for.
Correct.
And you were getting like a $900 console
Right.
for like $600,
It's true.
and at the time,
You're right.
and that to me was just like a no-brainer.
Right.
I was just like, one, this console is just superior spec-wise.
Right.
Just hands down, spec-wise, the PlayStation, I think in like the many categories that they compared it to, the PlayStation had the Xbox beat 7 out of 10.
Right. And that is correct.
And
That
I
is
was
factually
I
true.
was just like, okay, so it's the superior console. I'm like, now what about what I want to use it for, the games?
Right.
It had my favorite exclusives.
Right.
I'm not gonna say superior exclusives,
But in
because-
your opinion, right?
because I know that the Xbox exclusives at the time, Gears of War, Halo, and I think Fable was also an exclusive. They didn't have
Yes,
very
yeah.
many exclusives even back
But
then.
these were the brand new kind of exclusives that Microsoft at the time was pushing, was Fable, Gears, and Halo. That was kind of like the trinity of exclusives, if you will.
So, like, I'm not going to bash anybody's exclusive because I don't want anyone bashing my exclusives.
Okay. Okay.
But
Very generous.
for me, my exclusives were on the PlayStation. So now I had a console that was superior,
Right.
and I had that console being the one that's going to play all the games.
And it's
If-
an underdog. It's
Exactly.
not everyone's chanting its name.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And then
So the consoles come out. Let's skip to when you get a PS3. Okay.
well, that's actually where we will get to the next hatred.
Oh, okay.
Was the fact that I did choose the PS3.
Mhm.
everybody got mad at me. Everybody was always questioning me.
Yeah.
And everyone was always like telling me I wasted my money, I'm wasting my time.
Right.
Like, why would you do this? Was like the most common question, and it's
Right.
like I had offended them.
Right. That
Like-
you just got a system that you
Like
like.
this is worse than like the Hillary versus Trump war, guys.
Right. Right.
Xbox versus PlayStation.
This was the real
This was-
politics of 2007 or something. What was-
yeah, 2007, 2008,
Yeah.
whatever that. I
Right.
think the Xbox 360 came out late
Yes, it did.
2005,
Yeah, something like that.
or maybe even early 06.
Mhm.
Without looking it up, that's about where I think it came out.
Mhm.
But like people were just offended
Right.
that I had chosen
Yes,
a PlayStation,
yes.
and that's where I kind of like even built an even deeper hatred for it, because I'm just like, I don't care if you're upset with me.
Right.
Leave me alone. Like, fine. I'll play my exclusives by myself.
Right.
I'll play Uncharted.
Right.
And I'll play Infamous.
Mm.
And I will play God of War. And I will play Metal Gear Solid 4.
Yes.
I'll play
Twisted Metal.
Twisted Metal.
Infamous.
I'll play Infamous, or I think we said
you did.
Infamous.
Okay, you
I
said
think I
it.
said
Uh-huh.
Infamous. I'll play Killzone. I'll
Spy-
play
yeah.
I'll play all these
Yeah.
awesome exclusives, and Killzone 2, by the way. That was
Yes.
one of the freaking coolest games.
Right. Underrated Halo-esque game on PlayStation.
Yeah.
So, you're hating Xbox. Was there anything about the 360 that you were like, I kind of wish that PlayStation
Just the
had this?
controllers.
Okay.
I will give credit. The Xbox 360 controllers were far superior than the PlayStation controllers.
Okay.
And even though there were like other companies that would make a PlayStation controller to
Right.
look and feel like an Xbox, they sucked.
Interesting.
And
Okay.
I didn't like it. I didn't like the I love the trigger system of the
Yes,
Xbox,
yeah.
which the PS4 would adopt later,
But the
but
PS3
a PS3 did not.
R1 and
And-
R2 was iffy.
And they had little trigger adapters for the PlayStation
Right,
3
right.
controller, which I had bought, but they would always snap off if you were using the trigger too much.
Right. And so the
So they weren't very
only
helpful.
thing that we haven't really mentioned yet, and not to get too off topic, is Nintendo Wii. At the time, that's the third kind of pillar. So at the time, it was the common, and he's right about this. Everybody had it was called the Wii 60 or the 3 Wii 60, whatever you want to call it. And it was basically the combination of having a Wii and a 360 was the most optimal way to game as a gamer back then. So what was it about the Wii that you didn't even bring it into the conversation? It wasn't even an option for you. You didn't think about it. Or-
Yeah, so here comes more of the fanboy. Once I
Right.
got the PlayStation, I was set. I was like, don't bother me with any more of your shit. And then the Wii came out. The Wii did not impress me at first. Okay, like, because the Wii, or at least Nintendo as a whole,
Right.
they weren't playing the competition.
Right.
They
at this
weren't. They
point,
weren't
yeah.
really in the war. Like, the GameCube was the last console where I felt like they were trying to compete
Right.
with PS2
Right.
and Xbox One,
Right.
or Xbox
Xbox.
original.
Yes. Yes.
They were trying to compete, and then they kind of just went off and did their own thing.
Right. So you think that was just because you were looking for a core quote unquote gaming experience,
Mm-hmm.
it was just really going to be between those two.
Exactly. And the Wii, I remember the first time I played a Wii. I played Wii boxing on it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And that was one of the most fun things I'd ever
Was that
played.
at my house?
It was at
Or
your
uncle.
dad's house.
Yes.
It was at your dad's house.
Right. So, okay, so Wii's out of the question. 360 is trash in your eyes.
And but
Any other reasons why definitively 360 was trash? What did you think of Halo? Did you like Halo? Did you want Halo? Because obviously that's the big system seller for the 360 at the time.
so for me, Halo was just, to me, it was just a first-person shooter. Like, I'm not too deep into first-person shooters.
Right. Even still to this day, right?
To this day, I've gotten a little bit better. I find the enjoyment in them.
Right.
I'll jump on a few games of like Overwatch. I'll play Call of Duty with my friends, and but I don't really aim for those. I
Right.
like the more story-based driven games, and Halo is very story-based.
Right. It was. Yeah.
But almost everybody just wanted me to play online.
Right, and so that was
So-
actually a component I was going to talk about was, at the time, online gaming finally became a thing, and I think we'd have to agree in part largely to Xbox Online. Right?
Xbox-
Right?
oh my God.
Xbox Online
Alright.
was the one that ushered it in.
This is what I will give you.
Mhm.
The Xbox Online experience was better than the PlayStation's, but the PlayStation 3's was free.
It was free.
So
Rabbit, man. This guy.
So, it's like I don't play.
Yeah.
I don't even play online to begin with.
Right.
I'm playing the God of War games. I'm playing Infamous. I'm playing Uncharted. I'm playing Little Big
Uncharted.
Planet.
Forgot about that.
Little Big Planet was a big online game though.
Right. But that wasn't like competitive online.
And see, I didn't have to pay for that online.
Right.
I could still play Little Big Planet for free online.
Right.
And I for a long time, this changed with the PS4 and the Xbox 360. I mean the Xbox One.
Mhm.
Because when I got my PS4, I had a job. I was able to pay for online,
Right.
and I didn't have to work. But like as a kid with a PS3,
Right.
I had to convince my mother that like you're gonna have to pay for this every year
Right. And it was what, $60, and at the time that
for
was
an
like,
Xbox.
Yeah.
And
that was
you
like
know,
$90 or whatever. You know?
it's not that bad, but it's also
It's just another
when
expense.
when you're a kid and you have to try to convince your parents to pay for something
Right.
that they don't see as
Important. Right.
you're not gonna get it.
Absolutely. So we agreed 360 or Xbox Live. I forgot what that's what it's called. Xbox Live was better than PlayStation. What was it called online?
Just PlayStation.
PlayStation
Network.
Right.
online.
Okay. So that was better. But you didn't really necessarily care about online. You care more about the single story driven experience. So that kind of brings us, since you brought up the PS4 and the Xbox or Xbox One. No,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, the Xbox. Yeah, Xbox One. What was your opinion? Because you ended up buying PS4 because you're a rabid PlayStation fanboy, and I'm a Nintendo fanboy.
Oh, I gotta add one more thing.
Oh, go ahead.
The browser on the PlayStation 3 was great.
Oh, and
Like,
360 didn't have that.
And the 360 did not have it. I know it wasn't as great as like having a real solid computer,
Right.
but I was able to actually go on the internet, do what I wanted to do on the internet.
Right.
I was able to, copy pictures, buy music. I was
Right.
able to, buy movies. I can't tell you how many Amazon orders I had placed from my PlayStation. Like, because I would just
Right.
go on Amazon
Right.
and just
This
use.
is before the age of the smartphone.
Yeah, well, the smartphone was
It was like
there.
kind of coming, yeah.
But also not everybody was using them to their
Right.
fullest extent, and applications weren't completely up and running. Like you still had to go online
Right,
to Amazon.com. You didn't have like the Amazon app or
Right.
the eBay app. It wasn't as streamlined as it was now. So like from the comfort of my own room, I could just be watching a movie, press the PlayStation button, go to my browser, and buy something.
So now looking back, okay, at the time obviously you're completely pro PlayStation. Now looking back at that generation, who would you say, or has your vision shifted at all? Would you say PlayStation won the gen? Would you say that Xbox, looking back, yeah, they had some good stuff, like they had some good points, or would you say no, screw that console, I'm PlayStation for life?
Look, absolutely, PlayStation 3 beat the Xbox 360. Any of you guys want to argue?
Leave a comment down
go
below.
right on ahead.
Leave a comment
because
down
you're
below.
Never gonna change my mind. I'm gonna be stiff-necked, hard-hardened on this.
Wow. Okay.
You're not gonna change me. Spew your hate all you want. PlayStation 1, and we could prove that by just the sales numbers.
Right, they
because
did end
towards
up
the
beating
end,
it, yeah.
towards the end, once the PlayStation PS3 Slim came out,
Right.
it was all over. The PlayStation 3 started beating the Wii in sales.
Right.
It was destroying the Xbox in sales.
Right.
It was the cheapest way to get a Blu-ray player.
Right.
It was the easiest way to stream Netflix.
Right.
It had dominated
It did.
even non-gamers.
Right.
And I could almost go by the end of it, by the end of their life cycle, almost every house I went into had a PlayStation 3 now.
Interesting. Okay.
Like it just was the thing. At first it was the Xbox, and then people who weren't really into gaming dropped off the Xbox.
Right.
And most of the people who even had an Xbox started buying PS3 so they could kind of enjoy what the PS3 had to offer.
I see.
Like I know people who had an Xbox 360 for gaming, and then they would buy a PS3 because they're like, I need a Blu-ray player.
Right. Well, that was actually me.
And
so,
it's the cheapest way to have a Blu-ray player
right.
at the time.
So for me, just to cut in for my little piece, and then we'll move on to the current generation. But for me, at the time, coming from GameCube, obviously Nintendo fanboy for life. Even me growing up as an angsty teen, the Wii was impressive for its initial phase, but it did lose me. And so I was actually left with the choice of 360 or PS3. And I ended up choosing 360 because I'm a Halo fanboy for life. And I loved my PlayStation, or I loved my 360, but I ended up getting a PS3 specifically because I needed a Blu-ray player. And Blu-ray started happening. Movies that I liked, Star Wars, Rocky, Indiana Jones, they were all coming out on Blu-ray. And then I was like, okay, I need a PlayStation. So I ended up taking my dad's PlayStation 3. And from there, you actually gave me Infamous. You showed me Uncharted. You showed me a little bit of Fallout 3. I didn't end up playing it myself. God of War, of course. And so then I was like, dang, this console actually wasn't under. Like it was. I can't believe I didn't play it the entire gen. So I actually came into PS3 very late. I know you're shaking your head for those who or nobody can see you, but you know. So now moving right ahead, so you ended up getting a PS4, correct?
Yeah.
What edition is it?
I got the Darth Vader edition.
Right, correct. The only edition. The
The-
correct edition.
Yes, it's the Battlefront, and Battlefront is a garbage game.
right.
I honestly believe Battlefront is a garbage game.
Right,
Played
and that's
that-
a whole podcast in and of itself.
Played that for a few minutes,
Right.
maybe a couple of matches.
We
and I
played
was just
like 2 matches online.
And I was like, okay,
Yeah.
I have to put something else in here now. I got Fallout 4 at the same time, so I was like, okay, goodbye, goodbye.
So in the lead up to the PS4 and the Xbox One now, there's obviously no chance you're getting an Xbox One, correct?
No.
Okay, so now, so since there's no chance of you getting an Xbox One, was there anything that you were like, is there any merit to the system? Like, did you think, well, it's nice that, I mean, it has Kinect, is like the exclusives, no, not there? Like,
look, the Xbox One showed me nothing that impressed me.
Okay.
Now,
PlayStation 4 was more powerful, correct?
the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One, honestly, they're kind of like looking at their specs. They're actually pretty comparable.
Okay.
If I were to say, it's a 4 to 10, 5 to 10, 6 to 10. It's like one has an upper hand, one doesn't have an upper hand. This one was a much closer one, but the reason why, to me, PS4 still beat out the Xbox was because of exclusives now.
Right. Okay.
It's like power-wise, the PlayStation wasn't so much more dominant, and PlayStation did reflect that with price.
True.
So,
True.
you know, the PlayStation was undercutting the Xbox One significantly.
Right. I want to say $100 cheaper, $50
Yeah.
cheaper, something like that.
Also, I appreciated PlayStation's ability to advertise and market better.
Right.
If you remember, the Xbox One was not going to have solid games. They
Right.
weren't going to have actual physical games. You were going to have to buy them online. You weren't going to be able to trade them. They had this whole stupid system on how you could how you could share games, and PlayStation just came out freaking.
This is how you share a game on PlayStation 4.
With that beautiful commercial,
man.
and it was just like PlayStation just knows what the hell they're doing.
They just smoked them. And do you think that they learned from? Because okay, right, they ended up selling more PlayStations, but they didn't dominate the 360, right? Objectively. Even though they had better games, they had a better system. It took a long generation of catch up to get to the sales numbers they did. So you
and
think
eventually,
that
they won.
Right,
But it was a very hare and tortoise game here.
Right.
Where, you know, Xbox just came out as
Guns
fast as
blazing
possible and getting such a head start, and the tortoise PlayStation was just like.
So you think that they
along.
learned from that generation with PS4, and they come out with exclusive after exclusive. Just name me off, let's just say 5 exclusives that you loved on PlayStation 4.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so we got obviously love of my life, God of War.
God of War. Now, what do you call it? God of War or God of War 4?
God of War 4.
Okay, God of War 4.
All right, I know that's not the official title, and I know we're at the point where they're actually they're teasing the newest one with God of War.
We'll talk about that at the very end. Stay tuned for the end.
So
God of War 4.
We have that game. We had the other additions to the Uncharted series.
Yes, Uncharted 4, and then Lost Legacy.
Yeah, and then we had Lost Legacy. I never played Lost Legacy.
I heard it was garbage, but
yeah, I just stopped with Uncharted 4.
Okay.
And then they had a sequel to Infamous. That game.
Yeah, Second Son. Okay.
Yeah, Second Son was not one of my
Spider-Man on PS4.
preferred. Spider-Man for PS4 was amazing, and
You got
beautiful.
Last of Us Part 2. Whether we're gonna say that's good or bad, but it's a very high rated exclusive.
It is an exclusive. I do not subscribe to the Last of Us, but I did get Last of Us Remastered.
Okay, yeah,
the
that's
first
another
one, because
exclusive.
I love The Last of Us.
Right.
If I failed to mention that when we were talking about PS3, because for me, I got into The Last of Us game on PS3 very late.
Okay.
But
and it was a late game.
And it was a later game, but I was very excited for it to be remastered on the 4.
Right.
So I was just like, perfect, beautiful.
Right. So now looking at the current gen, we have a lot of exclusives on PlayStation 4. Other than Halo,
Ghost of Tsushima.
Yes, absolutely.
Beautiful game.
Absolutely. Check out my Let's Play, the game box of that. But so looking at Xbox, obviously there's nothing that's enticing you in terms of games.
No,
right?
I was never a Halo fanboy for life.
Right, which I am. And Halo 5 was disgusting. It was a disgrace. I don't care. Fight me on the comments. I don't really care. I hate Halo 5. I always will. Hopefully Infinite's better. So Halo's not enticing you. Gears isn't enticing you. Fable's no show.
Gears was actually for the 360. Gears was the only game that I actually wanted to play.
Oh, okay.
You know, me being more third person.
Right. Third
third-person action adventure, and then they were kind of horror too.
Right. Yeah,
But,
it was more like survival type.
Yeah,
ish.
ish.
More. Yeah. Okay. Like
But,
gory, bloody.
But I actually kind of I had a lot more respect for the Gears of War franchise, but then it kind of just dropped off.
Right.
Like a lot of people just thought, like I remember when
It
I would
lost its
bring
appeal.
up, yeah, when I would bring up Gears of War, they'd be like, no one plays that shit anymore.
Right.
And I was like,
Right. Interesting.
okay. I'm like, if that's the game that everyone's gonna drop, I'm like, Halo is almost just a carbon copy every time.
Yeah. Well.
To me,
this guy's
But
rabid, man.
but over the years, after playing with my family so much,
Right.
I definitely started seeing the difference in the Halo games. So, but like basically back to my rabid fanboyness. To me, in the heat of it, it was all just the same game, carbon copied over each other.
Right.
Until later on, when like my
You were
family
able
was
to
like,
kind of give some due credit to Halo.
yeah, when I actually got to really play Halo 3 and not ODST, Reach.
The greatest
When I
Halo
got-
game of all
yeah.
time. Fight me.
When I got to play Reach, I was like, okay, it does definitely have more merit than that. So, Halo as an exclusive is definitely a good selling point if you're
Right.
a Halo fanboy.
But now in the world of Xbox One versus PS4, it's unobjectable that the PS4 is actually, well, it won't beat the PS2, but it did beat the Nintendo Wii, which is Nintendo's highest selling home console, over 100 million units sold. So, do you think that the reason why? Because I almost feel like you hate on the Xbox One, but you're not like it's not as much of a sticking point for you to hate on it because you're just kind of like, it's a sad waste of a console. Like, why aren't you interested in it?
yeah, because for me, it really was a waste of my time.
Mm.
It was almost even a waste of my time to do research on it. Like when I was younger, like especially after I had already researched the 360 versus the PS3, I was just like, I don't know why anybody in their right mind would even choose this thing.
Right.
This, like, to me, it's just like, it's a no-brainer that the PS3 was better. And then we transition into the PS4, and I'm just like, I'm not moving.
Right. And
Why would I move now? Like,
you have
Xbox, show me. Xbox, get the rights to God of War then. Xbox get the rights to Uncharted.
Right.
Get the rights to Little Big Planet. Get the rights to all my favorite games.
Right.
And then maybe I'll even consider you.
Right. And so now for me, Nintendo fanboy for life, previously a 360 fanboy, right? Still love the 360, had a PS3, but it was my third or tertiary, whatever you want to call it, my third console. Going in, I had a Wii U. Obviously, I sank on that ship with it. I love it to this day. But making the decision between PS4 versus Xbox One. So, sorry, back up a little bit. I had an Xbox original. I didn't really go for PS2. Then I went 360. So then I went PS4. And the reason I did this was because looking at the Xbox One, this is where I really noticed, and this was always a problem, even in the 360 days. People would say, what are your exclusive games? And we go, oh, we have Halo, Gears, and Fable. They say, okay, name me 4, maybe one more. And we didn't, I don't have another exclusive to name you.
The one exclusive for the Xbox that was actually a fun time killer was Left 4 Dead.
Oh, right, Left 4 Dead, but I never played that.
Back in the zombie times.
Right. So now looking at the current day, 2013, 2012, whatever it is, and PS4's coming out. I didn't end up getting one that launch day, but then looking at Spider-Man for PlayStation 4, God of War 4, Little Big Planet 3, Last of Us 2, Last of Us Remastered, Shadow of the Colossus remake, Horizon Zero Dawn, Ghost of Tsushima, all of these.
I forgot to mention.
Horizon Zero Dawn 2, and number 2 coming out. But anyway,
Number 2 coming out.
So for me,
Is number 2 coming out on the 4 or the 5?
it is coming out on the 4 and the 5.
Okay.
So we're gonna talk about that when we talk about PS5. But anyway, so for me, looking at it, this is where exclusives really started to matter. And of course, I'm looking at, wow, you can't share games on Xbox Original. Or not Xbox Original, Xbox One. Wow, the hard drive size is smaller. Or wow, it's a little bit slower. Or oh, it's a little bit weaker. It comes bundled with Kinect. It's always listening. There's just all these lists of things that I was like, screw this. Why am I going to do this? I'll just wait for the PS4 to have these exclusives, which I know are coming. And then I'll jump over. And that's ended up what I did. And I still, to this day, have not played Master Chief Collection, which I own on disc because I just wanted to have it as a Halo fanboy. I have never completed Halo 5. Screw that game. I don't like it. It's garbage, trash. We'll talk about that another time. And looking at it just from my perspective, I feel like they really had the ball with the 360. They had the momentum, and they just decided to get cocky and they trashed it. They really did.
Yeah,
it's disappointing.
100%.
100%. So now we agree PlayStation 4 won that gen, or this gen. So now looking ahead at next generation, which we agree, we always feel like it comes too soon every year. I remember when we were talking about the PS4 coming out, and we're like, dang, and that was 8 years that the PS3 and 360 were out.
Yeah.
So it was the longest gen ever in history.
And I definitely got a lot of good years from
Yes.
that, but I felt like even that was too short.
Right. And so do you feel like this one is too short?
This one was way too short.
Mm-hmm.
This, like, I barely got my PS4, and all of a sudden, people were already talking about PS5. Nothing had been confirmed or anything, but they're like, it's already in the works. I'm like, okay, that's gonna be, I'm thinking another 8 to 10 years from now.
Right.
Literally within like the next like year.
Right.
The Xbox Series, I think it was S or whatever.
X.
X and S were announced
Right.
and shown. I'm like, oh crap. That means it's coming out in like a year.
Right, exactly.
And then PlayStation gets shown and announced. I'm like, oh crap. That means that's coming out in like
Right.
a year. So we're gonna have like a 5-year.
So they actually came out late or 2013. So let's just say 7 years.
Okay.
Let's just say. So I mean, it's pretty. It just doesn't feel like it. But anyway, we'll talk about that.
It just doesn't feel like it.
So opinion of, let's just talk about straight away PS5. What did you think of the reveal? What do you think of the price? So just to lay some numbers out here for you. PlayStation 5 is about $499 for the disc model. It's $399 for the discless model, and it's white. What do you think of it?
Yeah, so for those who do not know me, I love the aesthetic of the black console.
Right. Same.
That's like that was also another reason why I didn't like the Xbox 360. I know that's a vain one.
Right, but it came out in
I'm
white.
not even gonna give the Xbox 360 a downgrade for that.
Right.
But for me, I like the aesthetic of a black console. That's why I like my PS2 so much, and then
Right.
the PS3.
Right.
I never wanted the silver PS3. I was
Right,
like, I am
right.
going to wait until a black PS3 comes out. And that just followed immediately after. And for this one, they better make an aesthetically pleasing black PlayStation 5 because I am not digging this white PlayStation.
Right. So price wise, $499 for disc, $399 for discless. Which one appeals more to you?
Oh, absolutely disc. I would spend the extra $100, have the disc, physical copies,
Right.
all day, every day.
Now, do you think the price is competitive? So let me throw the other numbers at you. PS5, $499 and $399. Xbox Series X, full daddy, big fat disc version is $499 as well. So disc for disc, $499. Now, here's where it gets interesting, and this is what I want to ask you about. The Series S does not have a disc drive, and the only difference between the X and the S is it doesn't have a disc drive and it doesn't play 4K. So it's still 1080p, or it's a little bit higher, 1440p or whatever it is, right? But it's for $299. Thoughts?
I think that's just a dumb waste of a console.
Really? A dumb waste of a console?
A dumb waste of a console. Like honestly, we're going into 4K.
Okay.
All right, you go into any electronics store, you go into a Costco, you see all these TVs, they're all boasting 4K.
Right.
All right, if you get something that cannot play 4K,
You're not future-proofing.
you are very severely limiting yourself. If you're gonna buy this for like your like 11-year-old nephew,
Right.
for his birthday or Christmas present, you want to be the hero uncle or something, then by all means go ahead, because he's not gonna care. But like if you're an adult buying something for yourself,
Right.
spend the extra money. You're gonna need it.
Even if it's versus the Xbox Series X and the PS5, you would rather somebody just get the X.
Get the X. Just get the X because you don't want to be left in the dust.
So now here's a counterpoint. A lot of people say for people that either don't have a connection either way, right? Either they are Nintendo fanboy for life, right? Let's just say like for me,
Fine.
I always try to look at each gen as a new gen. And I go, okay, Nintendo I'm always going to get even if they sell me a rock. I don't really care what it is. If it's a Nintendo rock, I'm getting it. But now 360, or not 360, Microsoft Xbox versus Sony PlayStation. This, and I think I said this on one of my videos, which I'll link right above. What I thought was appealing about the Series S was the price point. In that, yes, they don't have the exclusive games. And that's a big problem still to this day, correct?
Yes.
Okay, now, they don't have the exclusive games. But that makes it a $200 cheaper barrier to entry for someone like me who would get the full fat Big Daddy PS5 so I can go into next gen with only $299, $300, right? $300, I'm in next gen and I can get a full fat Daddy PS5 sooner if I just don't get the Series X. So if they don't offer that SKU, there's a lot of people that they're missing. Do you think it's at least strategically smart?
It's at least smart in the fact that if you have a cheaper console, the people who are either who are not financially able to
Right.
spend that much money, or the people who just want to be cheapskates.
Right.
You know, they don't find the importance of it. Yeah, then that becomes an option for them.
Right.
Um,
Do you think that
But-
PlayStation should have made the discless
but I'm
model
not.
cheaper?
Look, disrespect whoever wants to take it. We're not talking about you. We're talking about me.
That's
And
very
you're
true.
asking me what do I think
Right.
about this, and I'm just like, if you like the discless thing,
Right.
that can appeal to a certain audience,
Right.
but also making it under 4K in today, like the PlayStation 4 Pro does 4K. We're saying the PlayStation 4 Pro is going to be more powerful than this next gen in quote
that is very true.
console.
Right.
That's dumb. That you don't like. I would not personally pay my money for that.
Okay.
Okay, if I had to pick between that or the Xbox Series X,
Mhm.
yeah, I'm gonna spend. I will save up for an extra month and
Right.
get the extra little bit of money. Now I have a job.
Right.
For kids, you know, you're at the mercy of whoever's buying you this kind
Right,
of stuff.
right.
But for me, a guy with a job, I will just wait. If I can't afford it, I'll be like, I will just wait, save
Right.
up a little bit more money,
Right, okay.
and I will get something that is a little bit further future proof.
Right. Okay.
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 And for me, I do not like the digital age.
Okay.
You know, I think that getting some things on digital is fine,
Mhm.
but I still like getting the disc-based game.
Okay, so agreed on that. I would never buy a discless console. But now let me throw this one at you. So obviously this doesn't appeal to you because you want a future-proof, full-fledged Fat Daddy console. So that's going to be PS5, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so now, could it be possible? Let's say that all of your friends, all of your family go Xbox Series X, right? And they all are playing Halo Infinite on it, and they're going, B, we really, really want you on. Dude, just get an S, right? And you're thinking, okay, I don't even want to buy games on Xbox at all, right? I don't want their clutter. I don't want the games in my library. I don't want anybody to know. This is a secret console. And then you buy the S because it's cheap, right? And you go with Game Pass. So let me just throw out Game Pass at you. Game Pass, and he's rolling his eyes. So Game Pass, he's already rolling his eyes. Game Pass is a service, and I'm sure you know, but I'm just gonna explain it for the audience. Is a service where for I think it's $14.99 a month, right? You get unlimited access to all of Xbox's exclusives and most third-party games. So for instance, if you wanted to play Halo Infinite with all your friends and family, you could buy a Series S for $299, $300, the price of a Switch, by the way, of an original Switch.
Switch is great.
Switch is great. We nobody doubts that. And find me in the comments. But so for the price of a Switch, you can buy a full-fledged next-gen system, not 4K, but you can also play for just 1 month, $14.99. You can play Halo Infinite with everyone. Thoughts?
I would just buy another Switch.
Honestly,
Honestly,
buy another Switch.
Look, we're talking PlayStation fanboy here.
Right,
Okay, we're not we're not talking about smart, smart
Right.
buying here. Like
Right.
what you said does make a lot of sense.
Right. So
Okay.
it could appeal to people.
It could appeal to people.
Okay.
I'll tell you what, if my family that wants me to play Halo with them so badly, all of you pitch in $50, eventually save up enough to get me this console, get it for me, and I'll jump on it every once in a while.
Right.
But I'm not spending my own money.
Right.
I'm not spending my
Right.
own money. I will buy a second Switch.
Wow.
When I don't even need a second Switch.
Right.
Before I bought an Xbox Series, that's
now,
the S,
now
right?
this is the S.
I would not buy the Xbox
What
Series
do you think the S stands for?
Small.
Oh, okay. That was nicer
Maybe.
than I thought you were gonna say. So, with that being said, who will win this generation, the next gen, between PS5 and Xbox Series X / S?
No, I'm only gonna compare the X to the 5.
Okay. right.
I'm gonna compare
So
the
forget
Big
the S.
Daddies. The S has a special niche.
Okay.
Niche.
But you know
whatever.
that will be counted in their SKU or
That's
their
fine.
sales. Okay.
That's fine. I don't care.
Do you
They
think?
get-
Do you,
they
so
get
do,
counted.
who will win it then? Who
Or
will
if
win
we're
it?
talking about price point sales,
Mhm.
the Xbox having multiple SKUs or just being able to sell
A wider range of SKUs.
A wider range of SKUs is a
Right.
better way of putting it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have the potential to outsell.
Mhm.
They definitely have the potential to outsell, but also that doesn't guarantee them.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because even if they do start outselling, PlayStation can easily just make a similar model.
Okay.
Like
Which I was very surprised. I thought that the digital version of the PS5 would be $350 or not $350. Just something like a little lower than, because I don't know, the whole gang of chicken where they weren't announcing the price. I was like, well, and PlayStation didn't even announce anything lower, so I was shocked. But
yeah,
so
but
one
PlayStation would easily could easily start to match that if they are feeling that threatened.
So
But-
one argument is that, I should say, in favor of your point, is that the S being so cheap lowers the perceived value of the brand, right? So PlayStation being higher, it bit them in the butt on the PS3, right? Because everyone's thinking,
Yes.
they think they're so bougie, they think they're so great. But then when they lowballed them, it worked out in their favor for PS4.
Yes.
Now that they're highballing, do you think that that's PlayStation being bougie? Do you think that that's what they like? What do you think of the price? Is it a fair price?
I'm not gonna say it's quite a fair price because, like I already said, I now need to wait for the PlayStation to make an aesthetically black version.
Okay, right, correct.
Like,
Now, if it was black, is it a fair price?
they have me kind of by the balls with having God of War 5,
Yes,
on
we'll talk about that.
PS5.
It's like we will talk about that in a second.
as well as Spider-Man PS5. You know,
Right.
all these awesome exclusives that are coming out for the PS5. So I'm like, I'm gonna have to get one.
Right.
I'm hoping and praying that they make an aesthetically black one. Otherwise, I'm gonna have this one really strange looking white console
Right.
sitting with all my awesome aesthetically black consoles.
Right.
You know, do whatever racist stuff you want in the comments. I don't care. You know, this is about a deeper war.
This is a
This is
deeper
about the
war.
console war.
The console war.
All right.
So you predict? Do you predict a smash for PlayStation again? Do you think that they will utterly dominate like this current gen, or do you think it'll be close? Do you think it like
I actually think this one will be closer.
really?
I honestly do think that this one will be closer because, in all reality, the PlayStation 5 has actually failed to show me too much that has impressed me.
Mm.
I'm trusting in the PS5 because I know what will eventually be coming out.
Okay.
All right, the sequels to so many good games that I have to continue with.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I'm pretty much going off of the faith that those are going to be good.
So is exclusives in like, so now that you're older, you
Mm-hmm.
can buy your own consoles. What, like, is there a chance that, let's say, if go back into the past, and Xbox comes out with really, really compelling exclusives, like things that you obviously are brand new, you've never seen before, but you're just like, wow, taken back. Things like on PlayStation. Are you to the point now that you're older where you could be swayed to Xbox, or are you just like, no, never?
Swayed.
Okay.
Okay, so this is the kind of character I am.
Mhm.
All right, I like Xbox can show me some of the greatest stuff possible at this point, and I'll be like, huh,
Wow.
whatever.
Wow.
But if somebody else takes the initiative to like set me up with it, and I'm not saying buy me an Xbox,
Right.
but like if I went over to my friend's house and they're like, dude, you got to play this game. This is
Mm.
like one of the coolest games ever, and I'm just like, nah, dude, I don't fuck with Xbox.
Right. Right.
And then he gets me on it, and I'm playing it, and it's actually that good.
Mm.
It might be able to get me to the point where I might buy an Xbox Series X.
Right. Full fat daddy.
Because if I'm going, I'm going all in.
Right.
All right. That's just the kind of person that I am.
Right.
But
So would you do it instead of the PS5? If it
Not
was
instead
that,
of the
okay,
PS5.
so no matter what, because you're locked in PS5, PlayStation fanboy for life.
well, not for life.
No.
Definitely not for life because
Mm.
PlayStation. I always give companies benefit of the doubt to screw everything over.
True.
Even Nintendo
Mhm.
has the ability to screw everything over.
That's debatable.
But-
It's very debatable.
Nintendo has been the most stable and the most reserved with their IPs,
Right.
and I don't see Nintendo ever doing that. But I also didn't.
The
think-
hardware could be.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I also
So-
didn't
so-
think that about a lot of companies.
So now talking about Nintendo, just a perfect segue. Where do the PlayStation 5 and the Series X leave Nintendo in a next-gen world? So one of the things that I've talked about on the channel before is that I believe, obviously I do not believe that there will be a Switch Pro. And now I'll ask you later about if you think that the Switch Pro will come out. But as for me, my theory about what Nintendo will do is that they will release a dedicated home console Switch that, whether or not it plays 4K or not, I don't believe it will. Maybe just straight 1080p, 60 frames a second, which is fine. That's current gen standards. But what I believe is that they'll do it for $99. Okay.
Mhm.
What this will do is it'll give Nintendo a high tier, Switch at $299, home console hybrid portable. Then it also has the $199 Switch Lite, handheld only, and then it also has a $99 TV only Switch. So first off, what do you think of that? Now, like, what do you think that would do?
well, having that many options, especially ones if they were as
Because
low,
$99 is an impulse buy.
Yeah,
You
if-
walk into GameStop and you're like, I'll take it with
if
Mario
you
Kart.
if you
know?
were selling something at that low of a price point, absolutely, a game itself is already $60.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
You spend an extra 40.
Yeah, you
Right.
for the price of 2 games, you could have gotten an entire console.
Right. They bundle with Breath of the Wild 2, Mario Odyssey, Mario Kart, Animal Crossing, whatever.
Yeah, even in just those games in digital form.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
They could easily start to build a lot
and
of
with the Pro
momentum.
controller. So that's what I would call the Switch Pro.
Unfortunately, though, Nintendo really only appeals to the demographic of kids and people who love the games.
Mm.
You know,
Okay.
usually people who aren't really into games, they don't get a Nintendo console.
Mm.
Like, they don't really have a purpose for it. You know, most of these people, they use their consoles now for streaming services, Blu-ray, and, you know, kind of like a hub.
Right.
And even those are becoming are getting more options with smart TVs and stuff like that.
Right.
So it's like
It's becoming more of a game-focused world in terms of consoles.
it's actually recircling
Right.
to the point where, you know,
N64.
so many people were buying these consoles just for the Netflix, Blu-rays, and streaming services. But now you can just buy just the TV and have those all.
Right.
So now the only people who are going to be buying consoles, not the only,
Yeah.
but the majority of people who are going to be buying these consoles are now coming back to serious gamers.
Right.
Which these companies should have been catering to from the beginning.
I agree. Totally
Because
agree.
these are gaming consoles.
Right.
All right. A PlayStation, an Xbox, and a Nintendo are gaming consoles.
Right. So now, so you're saying, okay, that would be a great move for them to do, but realistically, let's say that they don't do that. And let's say that they don't release a Switch Pro, and let's say they just ride out the original Switch and the Switch Lite until 2024. So another 3 years, right? So where do you see them? Do you see the Switch taking a huge hit sales-wise? Because right now it's the best-selling console 3 years in a row.
I 100% believe that. As for taking a hit, I don't know if taking a hit would be the best way to describe it, but I definitely can see their momentum slowing down significantly once these next gen consoles come out, because they're going to be the talk of the town. They're going to be the focal point, and everybody who is saving up to buy a console is going to buy one of the two, the Xbox or one of the three,
right?
Xbox Series S and X versus the PlayStation. And I guess if you want to, you know, the two PlayStation consoles, so the 4 consoles altogether.
Right.
But that just goes to show where my mind is at. It's like it's the big boys or nothing. You know what I mean? It's the disc-based game consoles or nothing.
Right. Okay.
But for Nintendo, I do feel like their momentum will at least slow down during that point. But I feel like Nintendo is going to still have their steady base of people who like it. And I'll tell you this right now. I'm actually on board to buy whatever next console Nintendo makes.
Oh, really? And
Like,
just so I think you mentioned it, you have a Switch.
I have a Switch, and I do love my Switch.
Which is your first Nintendo console since Game Boy SP?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
So, okay, quickly, what made you interested in a Switch? What is compelling about that for you? As somebody who's been PlayStation for life, you had an N64, you had an SP, but not really by choice, just kind of hand me down or whatever, you know?
I've always liked Nintendo's innovation since the Wii.
Okay.
You know, and the fact that they had the balls to kind of like get it, not fall for the war,
right?
And be like, you know what, we'll just go and do our own thing, and we'll focus on making it fun.
Okay.
If you want to have a fun time, get a Nintendo console.
Okay.
And you know, the Wii U was it was I didn't have too much experience with it.
Right.
So I'm not gonna bash it, nor am I going to praise it. But then when I saw the Switch, it blew me away. The fact that this handheld console can so seamlessly go from handheld to your television, and how it's surprisingly durable. It's very lightweight, feels very natural. The fact that you could take the Joy-Cons off,
right,
move them around, because like you know, even like the PlayStation had a little bit of a gimmick like that with their PSP Go, and their PlayStation Vitas, kind of doing similar-ish things.
The PlayStation TV, even like the little box, and then the remote plate for PS Vita with PS4.
Exactly.
Right.
So
this one very streamlined and very seamless. You're like,
this
wow.
This was perfection.
Right.
They had taken this concept and just ran with it completely instead of half-assing
completely
it.
Fleshed it out.
Yeah, instead of half-assing it like the PlayStation did.
Wow. Okay.
And
which I agree.
I got Breath of the Wild for it, and I was just like, dude, this is awesome.
Right.
This is just absolutely awesome. And I at least now have enough respect for Nintendo when I see their next innovative console.
Mhm.
So like if they come out with like lesser versions of the Switch and all that kind of stuff, I probably won't go for that.
Like you're not interested in just a TV only mode.
Yeah, because I already have a Switch now.
Right. Okay.
So I can already enjoy
not
all
interested
those.
in a Switch Lite because you already have a handheld Switch.
Exactly. So
Right.
my bases are covered right now.
So now, would you go for a souped-up Switch Pro in a traditional sense of bigger screen, bigger controllers, maybe not detachable Joy-Cons, but still a hybrid system, 4K, all that, bigger battery?
If it was up to 4K standard,
Right.
and bigger screen, I would still like the Joy-Cons to be removable.
Okay.
Because sometimes I'll just be on my lunch break at work, and I'll prop the thing up like a TV screen.
Yeah, the tabletop mode.
Yeah, take off the Joy-Cons. Everyone looks at me all weird and stuff, and I'm just like, dude, get lost. I'm playing here.
Yeah,
dude.
right.
I'm
Okay.
like, I'm on my lunch
So
break.
you would go for one, even if it's not a Switch 2, you'd go for a Switch Pro.
Probably.
Wow.
Like,
okay.
like honestly, and like I said, I would rather buy a Switch before I bought an Xbox Series S.
Good
So
to
I'm
know.
like,
Good to know. Okay.
I would actually be kind of excited for Nintendo to up their ante, and that would actually put them in a competing race with the newer consoles if they could manage 4K and they can manage like with their library of
Do you think
IPs.
that they need that? Do you think that they need specs to compete?
They do not.
Now, do you think that they need bigger hardware to gain the third parties for this next gen to help them compete?
I feel like if they want to truly compete, I don't think they really need to compete in the sense that they are hitting their core demographic.
Right.
They are satisfying the people who love Nintendo, who buy their consoles. They're not pandering
Right.
to other demographics that probably won't buy their console anyway.
Right.
You know, PlayStation and Xbox are guilty of that, where they will just pander to try to get more sales. And honestly, you should just be devoted. You should be more devoted, not only, but more devoted to your fan base.
Right.
And Nintendo has done that in spades. So I don't feel like they're going to need to compete, at least sales wise.
Right.
But I would love to see them actually bring out a powerhouse that could honestly, like, let's be honest, can take away sales from the Xbox.
I see it. So you want a Nintendo and Sony PlayStation world where Xbox is a poor, pitiless servant.
Dude, I would honestly love for Sony and PlayStation to reunite their their friendship,
right?
Their
long
business,
lost
business deal,
Yeah.
and like
Make a
start
Sony-
sharing exclusives and start having things like crossover and
a Nintendo PlayStation.
a Nintendo PlayStation. Like
And
that
just
would,
destroy Xbox and
like honestly, that would be such a wonderful thing. Although I would want Nintendo, I would not want Nintendo to sell out to PlayStation.
okay.
I don't want Nintendo to have to jeopardize
What Nintendo does.
losing the strength and losing the integrity that they have with their IPs
Right.
to PlayStation, because PlayStation is, like I said, one of those companies that will pander if they just will.
Right.
And that kind of concerns me. This is why I say I'm not a PlayStation fanboy for life, because if they start pandering and they start going against me as a core audience member of their product,
right?
No, I'm not gonna follow you.
Right.
Like,
right. Well, you go Xbox.
You want to disrespect me? Xbox is already doing the same thing.
So,
I'm like, Xbox would literally have to pull a 360 on itself. Yeah.
Right.
And actually.
You're right.
And actually show me that they're more loyal.
Right.
But if PlayStation's willing to do it, I see Xbox willing to do it. The only one that I don't see willing to do it would be Nintendo.
That's fair, and I completely agree. That's why I am a Nintendo fanboy for life. But now, before I get to the last question, I want to leave you with this scenario. PlayStation 5 comes out. Xbox Series X comes out. Let's say PlayStation starts winning heavily. Let's say it's like millions of consoles better, or, selling better. And let's say that Xbox goes, you know what? If you can't beat them, join them. And they put Game Pass on Nintendo Switch. So for $15 a month via streaming, you get the entire Xbox arsenal on Nintendo Switch, portably on the go, also on your TV. And Xbox just says, screw it. Why not? Do you think then that PlayStation would be in trouble? Not even just from Xbox, but from Nintendo, like, wow, now this home console handheld has next-gen games when it's just being streamed, so it doesn't need to have the hardware. to do that. You know what I mean? Do you think that that could be a formidable threat to PlayStation?
Okay, so I definitely think that it could be a threat
Mhm.
simply by the fact of how ludicrous that would even be. Like,
so you don't think it'll happen?
no, well, I definitely don't think it would happen
Okay.
unless you have inside information that it is happening.
You never know. You never.
But
know.
I'm
That is the box talk.
if they were to literally like announce that, my jaw would drop.
Wow.
My jaw would drop. I'd be like, how did this actually
So
happen?
now the question is, would you get Game Pass on Nintendo Switch?
Probably not.
No, you wouldn't.
Well,
$15 a month for Halo, for Gears of War, for Fable, the new Fable coming out, for all the third-party games that are on there. Like, it almost would be really beneficial, so you don't have to buy them on PlayStation 5.
is this Game Pass also benefiting Nintendo?
Well, let's say
Do I have to pay for a Nintendo Game Pass and an Xbox Game Pass?
no.
Okay.
Let's say it was just a Nintendo games weren't included in this. It's just an Xbox Game Pass. So Xbox games that are on the Xbox platform, you can now play on Nintendo. But if you want Nintendo games, you got to buy Nintendo cartridges or digital whatever.
You know what? Honestly, the answer is just a maybe.
Okay.
Like I'll go with how I feel if that could ever
That's the
possibly
answer of a true
happen.
fanboy. A true fanboy can't even commit to buying Game Pass for Nintendo
like-
Switch.
because honestly, man, I'm just like, still, those games don't impress me.
Right.
Anything that the Xbox has to offer just does not impress me.
Right.
So I'm just like, why am I gonna pay even $15 for something unimpressive?
Right. It doesn't matter what the price is, unless it was free.
Yeah.
And maybe you check it out for a minute, but you're just not
Yeah,
interested.
if they offered me like get your first month free, I would at least try it.
Right.
And if it was that awesome, then sure, I would maybe I would keep it going.
Right.
But you were also saying $15 a month. That's a lot a year.
Right.
You know what I mean? If they had, do they have a year?
Not to my knowledge. You can leave that in the comments if I'm incorrect. But
Yeah.
Not to my
Yeah.
knowledge.
Let us know. But
Yeah.
$15 a month. That's like
For things that you're not even interested in.
that I'm not even interested in. Yeah. That's just not gonna.
So now, the big
Be a
question,
yes.
the last question we're going to talk about before, and just so you guys know, thank you very much for listening. I really appreciate it. If you like hearing B come on the podcast, make sure to leave a like on the video as we get to the last question. And since you are a resident PlayStation fanboy for life, tell me, a Nintendo fanboy for life, what will God of War 2 or 5 or whatever it's going to be called be about?
Well, it's been officially announced as God of War Ragnarok.
It has been, but I don't care about that. I'm calling it 2/5. God of War Ragnarok 2/5 was officially announced in the last PlayStation showcase. I did a video about that. I'll link that right there in the card. All we hear is Atreus and Kratos. Or do we even hear Atreus?
I don't know. We don't even
hear Atreus. So what is your theory? Go ahead. I'm just gonna not say anything. What is your theory on what God of War Ragnarok is about?
All right. Do we want the long version or do we want the short version?
Let's go with the short-ish version.
All right. So this is nothing more than a speculation and a theory.
Right.
Okay. Like this is if you were asking me how I would make the game or
Right.
how I would make the game make sense. And I'm also gonna just add this: the writers and Cory Barlog, the director, and not just him, but all the people who have worked on all the God of Wars except for Ascension, are geniuses.
Correct.
They're just geniuses, man. Like, I thought I had come up with my own little theory of what God of War 3 was gonna be like, and when I played God of War 3 for the first time, their story was so much better than mine. They blew me out of the water.
Right.
So I'm just gonna say this: as good as I think what I'm about to say, as good as I think it is,
Right.
they're probably gonna make something 1,000 times better. If anything, which I think they might probably already even have the game nearly complete. If they're
Right, because it's coming out
making it.
2021.
Yeah, so they probably won't even be able to utilize any of this stuff. But if they are listening to this, or if somebody wants to share this with them, and they're like, these would be some good ideas, feel free to take them. I just want
The game to be great.
I want the game to be great.
Right. So
So-
what do you think it'll look like?
So I think that it will take place obviously a little bit ahead of God of War 4. I'm just gonna call it God of War 4 for the sake of this. And Atreus will be a little bit older, and I'm trying to think of a way to where it kind of starts to splice into actual Norse mythology, with Thor, being present, because if you played the very end of the God of War game, spoilers, if you play the very secret ending of the God of War game, Thor is there as a kind of like a Easter egg into the newest game. So I don't think it would necessarily be a spoiler for us to say that Thor would be in the next game. I know that people are expecting Thor to come into this series at some point, obviously.
Right.
But the fact that you can find him find that cutscene in the game is a little bit of a spoiler. But it's been over 2 years.
It's been 2 years.
It's been 2 years
okay,
now.
So what are we looking at? Is it going to be time skip? Is it going to be takes place right after where we left off? Is it going to be?
I believe there would be a time skip.
How far?
Not too far, honestly. I'd probably say maybe only a couple of years. Atreus is not quite an adult, but he's a little bit older. He's 12 in this game. Maybe he's like 15.
15, 16.
15, 16 in this game. He's getting a little bit more proficient. You know, him and his father Kratos are, you know, really getting their teamwork synced down to a profession.
So maybe a lot of the combos that you have in God of War 4 are kind of just they're the basic combos.
One thing that I would love for them to do in God of War for the next game that they've never done in any of the other God of War games, and it always kind of like made me feel weird because these games are so story connective driven.
Mm-hmm.
I would like for you to keep all of your stuff, all of your armor, all of your weapon upgrades, and transfer it over to the next game, and you build off from that, because like you can get Kratos to
I see. So then the level cap just gets higher.
The level cap just gets higher and enemies just get harder.
Right. Okay, so now story wise God of War 4. God of War 5.
Wise God of War 4. We start with Atreus being, you know, a little older.
Right.
Kratos and him having you know, really great teamwork, a stronger bond. And this is where the ending of God of War 4 comes in. You know, Thor comes. Thor's pissed at you for what you did during God of War 4. This is going to be heavy spoilers, guys.
Right.
All right. If you have not finished God of War 4, you know, stop before we even start talking about this stuff.
Right.
But basically, you've killed Thor. You've killed Thor's sons.
Right.
And you know that's pretty much. And you've also killed his brother.
Right.
And you're causing some mayhem.
Right.
All right. You also, even though you can't redo it, you also know how to get to Jotunheim.
Right.
So Thor, you're one of Thor's biggest targets. You're one of Odin's biggest targets.
Right.
And Thor comes and he's seeking revenge.
Okay.
Kratos and Thor fight. They're pretty evenly matched, but like in kind of helping with the prophecy that we think happens at the end of God of War 4, where, you know, they lead us to think that Kratos dies.
Oh, right.
Right. If you look at the mural on the wall,
right.
And, you know,
and
Atreus says we're almost to the end, and Kratos goes, yes, we are.
And Atreus is Loki. Spoiler.
Atreus is Loki, or that's his giant name that his mother wanted to name him.
Right.
Thor ends up defeating Kratos. Very, very, not very overly powered.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like he doesn't just destroy and obliterate Kratos, but it's a pretty good fight. He ends up beating Kratos, and Kratos ends up dying. Now, I'm okay with Kratos dying as long as it's not permanent. For people who have actually played a lot of the God of War games, Kratos has died quite a bit.
Right.
I
think every game almost?
Nearly.
Yeah.
Nearly every game he has died.
Not Ascension, maybe?
In Ascension, it's a little bit different.
Anyway.
But he usually dies, but the point is that Kratos is stronger than Death, and Death cannot hold him. And that would be the same for this game. Kratos dies, he goes to Helheim. He's already been able to escape Helheim.
And so would you want like a dual narrative where it's you play as Kratos and then you play as Atreus, you know what I mean? Or would it just be you only play as Kratos and you're looking for Atreus?
I don't want you to play as Atreus yet. Maybe they can have that in at the end of the game. I'm going to tell you why. But basically, Kratos dies. He's stuck in Helheim. He's in a deep part of Helheim, harder to get out than previously in God of War 4.
Right.
And you fight your way out. And when you finally get out, you realize more time has passed than is normal. That would happen if he wasn't in Helheim.
Right.
And you find out
time skip.
We find out that when Thor killed Kratos, he kidnapped Atreus, brought him to Odin. Odin and them used some kind of magic to basically brainwash and remove Atreus's memories of Kratos. And they made Atreus believe that he's an Asgardian Aesir god, Loki. And this is how we get into the dynamic of, you know, Thor and Loki being brothers. This is how we get into the dynamic of Atreus being the trickster god, where he's basically disrespecting those gods, playing pranks, setting up traps for them, because even though he thinks, in quotes, that he's an Aesir god, there's something that doesn't feel right, that he doesn't belong. And he doesn't really have respect for them, so he's always trying to like mess with them, sabotage their stuff. Which is like Loki in actual Norse mythology. And basically, you're still not playing as Atreus yet, but basically the gameplay is Kratos having to solo this journey, fight his way to Asgard to save his son, and remind him who he is.
Right.
Try to bring him back. And Atreus also, story-wise at least, being conflicted with, why don't I feel like I'm family here in Asgard with these Aesir gods?
Are you gonna play as Atreus at this point, or is it just he's the enemy?
So basically, by the time you get to the point, Atreus will at one point be the enemy, and it will be a very like similar fight to when Kratos fought his another spoiler for another God of War game. In God of War Ghost of Sparta, you get to save your brother from Thanatos, but your brother hates you for thinking that you abandoned him there.
Right.
And you have to fight your brother, but Kratos doesn't fight his brother. Not at full force. You kind of just like petty fight him because you'd love your brother and you don't want to kill him. You would love Atreus and you wouldn't want to kill him. So Atreus and you would fight, and Atreus and like you would be trying to convince Atreus, and Atreus is like, you're a liar. But then as the fight kind of concludes, Atreus defeats Kratos. Atreus is an adult also, by the way.
Okay.
At this point,
okay.
like I said, the time.
Would it be okay if we started Atreus off as a kid, or does it have to be he's 16?
We could even start him as a kid.
Right, because then it'll make sense with at least the vision in the end of God of War.
Yeah, so that's not necessarily the part that I'm
Yeah.
too concerned with. It's more so the fact that when Kratos was in Helheim, so much time has passed. He's an adult. So Atreus beats Kratos, not a legitimate defeat for Kratos, because Kratos is not trying to kill his son.
But it's more like
Kratos is trying to snap his son out of it and using methods that are far less than lethal.
Right.
And Atreus is like trying to go all out, trying to destroy this invader, this intruder.
Right. It's like Darth Vader versus Luke in Return of the Jedi, where Vader's kind of trying to convince Luke to turn to the dark side. Kind of reverse that. But I get what you're saying.
So you would get to that point, and then you would actually end up through some form of magic that you would get from somewhere. We would find a way to get Atreus to remember, and then from there, Kratos and Atreus would be both playable characters.
Okay.
To where you could actually play as Atreus and Kratos, and it's kind of like the new segue into God of War
5
6.
Or 6. I mean, yes.
Whatever they want.
So that's where the game ends. It's like kind of at the end of 2 when Kratos is crawling up the
Mount Olympus. This would be where like Atreus and Kratos
are like, we will defeat them together.
We reunite, and we're like,
we're coming for Odin and we're coming for Thor.
Yeah.
Right.
We're coming for you now. You came for us. We wanted to be left alone.
Right.
And now we're taking the fight to your doorstep.
What a crazy end.
The next game would be you and Kratos, or Kratos and Atreus, both being able to be playable characters. Maybe they could even do an online thing with that. Maybe
a co-op.
Maybe like a co-op thing.
Now,
I'm not sure about a split screen thing. Split screen is kind of like a way of the past now.
So now, question. That all sounds amazing. Leave a like if you think that analysis of God of War 5 sounds amazing, which I actually think that actually sounds very plausible. But my question for you is, will we see God of War 6 on PS5? Because God of War 5, as long as it's not delayed, is coming out basically the year PS5 is coming out. So could we see 6 as a swan song for the PS5?
I would really like that. I would honestly be a little bit annoyed if I had to buy a new $500 console every time I wanted to play one of these games.
I know, but they're gonna get you.
And I feel like because God of War Ragnarok, God of War 5 is gonna be coming out so close to launch, right, that they would definitely have enough time to finish another game and release it as the ending to the PS5.
Okay.
And
as the swan song.
And then maybe even do like whatchamacallit, a Horizon not Zero Dawn, the new one.
Yes. Or yeah. Horizon I don't even know what it's called, but Horizon Zero Dawn 2.
Yeah. Where they're planning on releasing it for both. And that to me would be fine.
Okay.
Because I would probably even still get a PlayStation, I guess, 6.
Yeah.
And when I got a PlayStation 6, I would want to play God of War 6 on
Right.
the newer console anyway, but I don't want to also be forced into it again.
Right.
Because, like, I'm already kind of, like, gritting my teeth, and I'm like, geez, now I have to buy a $500 console to technically play a $60 game.
Right.
60 or more dollar
$70.
game.
Yeah.
They're going to be $70 now, yeah.
Which we didn't talk about, which we don't have time for.
We don't have time for. But that's kind of, like, my brief, remember, the shorter version.
Right.
You know, I've written out more details and all that kind of stuff.
Course. And if you want to hear about that, make sure to leave a comment, leave a like on the video, asking for B's full analysis and full plot, detailed story analysis of God of War Ragnarok.
Kratos gets a dragon.
Kratos gets a dragon.
I like when you free those dragons at the end of during God of War 4. Yeah, they come back. Anyway, if you guys want to hear that, you know, let us know. If you don't want to hear that,
yeah, we'll leave a dislike. I don't know. So that's gonna wrap up the end of the next episode of Boxcast. Thank you guys so much for watching. B, thanks for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome, man.
I really appreciate it. My resident PlayStation rabid, PlayStation fanboy for life. So if you guys liked this kind of video, if you like the style of video, leave a like, leave a comment, tell us what you think. If you didn't like the length, too bad. Listen to it on 2x speed. If you like the length, good job. I'm proud of you. Until next time, guys, I'll talk to you later.